Good morning and welcome to our kitchen. I'm Gordy Galusha, and I'd like to introduce a friend of mine. I'm sure everybody knows who it is, Sue Jacobs. She's going to help me today in the kitchen because Nancy's laid up for a little while and hopefully she'll be back before Christmas. So today we're going to make a butternut squash soup and a chocolate chip Toll House cookie pie. And I'm going to begin because mine has to cook a little bit longer than Sue's. And to begin to tell everybody, this is our 277th program.
Wow.
And it's wonderful to be able to do this. I love it. So in my bowl, I have 2 eggs. And I'm going to mix these up so they're nice and frothy. Okay. And to my eggs, I'm going to add my flour and sugar. I have a half a cup of white sugar, a half a cup of flour, half a cup of brown sugar. I'm going to mix this all together. It doesn't take very, excuse me, it doesn't take very long to make this pie, but it will be surprisingly good when you get it done and you're able to eat it. So to my flour and sugars, I'm going to add 1 1/4 cup of sugar.
Butter?
Oh yeah. Can't tell the difference between butter and sugar today. Okay, I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla. I bought this bottle of vanilla down. I'll tell you where, Price Chopper, for $11.
That's expensive. That's expensive.
But it lasts me a long time, so, well, should have done this before. And to all my ingredients that I have in my bowl, I'm going to add a cup of chocolate chips and a half a cup of pecans. Make sure your butter is nice and soft when you put it in here. And this is what it looks like when you have it all done. Make sure everything is mixed up. I'm going to now put it into a pie crust that's already been made, a deep dish pie crust. These are real easy to come by. They're a lot easier than making your own crust, which I do both, but sometimes I like the easy things to do. When you get all your batter and everything into your pie crust. You will put it into a 325-degree oven for 60 to 65 minutes. You keep an eye on it, make sure that it's cooking the way it should. And you spread this around the pie crust.
Oh, Gordy, that looks so good already.
Looks almost good to eat dough,
I
raw
love-
dough,
I
huh?
love cookie dough. Cookie dough ice cream.
Cookie dough ice cream.
Yep. I know it's not supposed to be good for people to eat
Cookie dough.
regular cookie dough with the raw eggs in it, but
Tastes good anyway, doesn't
oh
it?
gosh, yes.
Okay, that looks like it's in there pretty well even. I don't know if people have, people out there in TV land have these little gadgets, but they're good to keep the pie crust from browning too much. Well, it's going to be one little piece there. It might be a little browner than the others. And I'm going to put it into a 325-degree oven for 60 to 65 minutes. Okay, that's all for the chocolate chip pie, and we're going to turn it over to Sue.
Thanks so much, Gordy. That's going to be smelling wonderful.
In a few minutes.
Oh my goodness, yes. Okay, so I'm going to be making butternut squash soup, which is a recipe that I originally found in The Joy of Cooking. And although the recipe calls for butternut squash, you can certainly use other types of winter squash like delicata, Hubbard, acorn. You can even use pie pumpkins if you'd like to. And the cookbook suggested an unusual garnish. So like pumpkins, when you're scooping out the innards of a pumpkin, you can wash the seeds and then mix them with a little bit of oil and toast them. Either bake them with the squash or in a separate pan, and you can use those as a garnish. I've never done that, but it's certainly something you can do. So the first thing I did was to bake the squash, and I bought acorn squash at the grocery store, and these can be a challenge to cut and get them ready for the baking pan, but you can use the fresh chunked up that they have in the vegetable department. You can use frozen. Lots of times in the fall, my husband and I will buy a bushel of these, and I'll just spend a day baking them. Sometimes he has to help me cut them in half. Scoop them out, we'll bake them, and then I will let them cool, scoop them, bag them, and put them in the freezer, and then we have it all winter. So I baked them all. The recipe says 400. I tend to cook it lower, so I set it about 350, and it took a little bit longer to bake, but at least as the juices came out of the squash, it didn't burn on the pan. You just oil the pan a little bit, and you put your cut side down of the squash on the pan and let them bake till you can easily poke them and you know that they're done. So you start out with 3 tablespoons of either unsalted butter or oil, and I use oil. And it also calls for 2 large leeks. So I went to the store to get some leeks, and my goodness, this is the size of the leeks. It's huge. It's huge. And there's no way I'm going to use 2 of these. So I think 1 or even less than 1. It says it calls for just the white part. So you're going to cut from here down and use this in your soup. I chopped up about half of it. It is here in the bowl. Oops, I got myself caught. Put that in there with the oil. And I can cut the other half. You're going to be chopping this up so that later on, after everything has been simmered, you're going to use and you're going to blend it. So the recipe calls for you to put the soup through a blender after it's simmered for about 20 minutes. I love to use my immersible blender. You just have to remember to take it off the heat before you do that. You don't want it bubbling when you stick that blender in there and have it
Have hot soup.
oh my goodness, that would be painful. That would be painful. It also, the recipe also calls for fresh ginger. So 4 teaspoons of fresh ginger, which I did last night. And can add that right in there. Gordy, can you show me how to do this oven, please? Or this stove? Right,
Okay.
this one?
Yeah, this is the front.
Okay.
You see. Yeah, that's the front.
Okay, good. So most people, and I've usually used just a vegetable peeler to peel this off, and for 4 teaspoons, it's probably less than this. This is probably more than you're going to need. And I had read at one point that you can use a spoon to peel this, which actually worked pretty well. You can see the skin is very, very thin and it peels right off. And you can also just freeze it whole and grate it if you want to. I have a friend who does that. I like to just finish peeling the whole thing, mince it all up, and put it in, wrap it in just plastic wrap in 4 teaspoon size portions. And if you've got other recipes that use a different amount, you can freeze it, just mark the plastic, and you've got it all set to go. So we're going to simmer this combination of ginger and leeks until it's soft. You want it on medium-low heat. You do not want it to burn because it will give the soup a really funny, unpleasant taste. So while that's simmering, you can see that I already scooped out most of the squash. I left one. It's in the shell. You just scoop it out into a bowl so it's ready to go into the soup pot. You know, when the weather gets cold, this is the time of year I love to make soup. And this is one of my
time of year. Soup
soup is wonderful this time. As soon as it starts getting cooler, and of course, this morning we had a frost, really good frost.
Really?
Frost was on the pumpkin up in Windsor this morning. So, yeah. You just scrape that all out, and then you can throw the skin away. Oh, see, I'm not used to an electric stove.
Don't you have gas?
Yes, we have gas. Well, propane actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find I have more control over it.
I think you do.
Yep.
More control over than you do electric.
Yep. I'm not dissing your stove, John. It's cooking. That's good. I'm just going to have to keep a closer eye on it.
I have a cooktop and I love it.
Gas?
No, electric.
Electric, yep. Yeah, this
It's getting old now. The oven doesn't work like it should. So I have to keep my eye on whatever in the oven.
Yep. This is starting to soften up nicely. I don't know if you want to take a look at that. It's softening up nicely. So at this point, it calls for 4 cups of chicken stock. You can make your own. A clear stock would be best. Or you can purchase it, which is what I did. Add the chicken stock. And your squash. So those were pretty good sized squash, so I don't know if I'm going to use this whole amount. Let me stir this in and take a look at it, see how it looks. And it's needs to simmer for about 20 minutes. And you stir it occasionally, you break up the squash. Put a little more in because I can always add more stock if it needs it. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now, one thing the recipe did not call for that I really like and have added is just a pinch of thyme. I think it warms it up. It gives a really nice flavor to the soup. And it's not much, it's just a tiny little bit of thyme. Stir that in. And that's going to simmer on low for about 20 minutes. And then I'm going to take it off the heat and I'm going to use my immersible blender and blend it up so it's nice and smooth, and then get ready to serve it with some freshly chopped parsley over the top. That's how we like it best at our house. So that's it. We just wait for this to simmer, wait for Gordy's pie to finish baking, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we've been simmering this for a while, and this, I wish you could be here because the smell of Gordy's delicious dessert is just everywhere. It's wonderful. So, as you can see, the soup is a little on the chunky side. So I am going to move this over here so it's off the heat and use my wonderful boat motor, my immersible blender.
I said, okay.
All right.
Gave me some for Christmas. Oh, look at this. I don't know. I washed my apron, but it didn't come out.
So as you can see, it's nice and smooth now. And I'm going to do a test to see how it is for seasoning. I think that's pretty good. Other people can add salt and pepper to it as they like, and I don't think it's pretty thick. So if you like it, if you don't like it quite that thick, You can add some more stock, some more stock to it. But it's nice and thick and good, delicious soup. All right, so you'll join us at the table.
That's cute.
I'm supposed to go first. Today I made Toll House chocolate chip cookie pie, and this is what it looks like. It looks pretty yummy.
It sure does. Smells even better.
Yeah, it does. It smells great.
Mm-hmm.
I used a pie crust that was already made, which I use a lot. It's they're just as good as homemade crusts. So if you don't have any desire to make a pie crust, get one of those, and they come in handy. So keep a couple in your freezer. My Toll House cookie pie is made with eggs and butter and vanilla and sugar and brown sugar, walnuts and chocolate chips. I mixed it all up and put it in my pie shell. I put it in a 325-degree oven for 60 to 65 minutes, and this is what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. And today it wasn't a disaster, Nancy. It came out okay. So I'm going to turn this over to Sue.
Sue impersonating Nancy. So today I made a butternut squash soup, which is a wonderful addition to your fall menu. And bake those ahead of time, and then just put the whole sheet with the 2 sliced or cut in half squash when they were done right down in the refrigerator. So it was easy this morning to scoop them out. Cooked the leeks and the fresh ginger in a little bit of oil. Added the good chicken stock and the squash to that, and a pinch of salt and a pinch of thyme, and let that simmer for about 20 minutes, and then used a blender, an immersible blender. If you don't have one, you can use a regular blender. Just be careful you don't burn yourself because the soup is pretty hot. And then topped it off with some fresh chopped parsley. So, salt and pepper's on the table. Depending on people's taste, you can add to it as needed. You could also top it with croutons or cilantro if that's to your liking, or toasted seeds, squash seeds, or pumpkin seeds. So I'm looking forward to this.
It looks delicious.
Smells good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Hope you come back.
Yeah.
If you'd like any of these recipes, please send a self-addressed stamped envelope to Dalton Community Cable, 151 Park Avenue, Dalton, Mass. 01226. And that is all from our kitchen today. Hope you have a beautiful fall day.